Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about something. It's kind of off the cuff. I know I did a video recently where I talked about how we had company. The company has left, but we had company here for a few days, and this might be a two-part video. I want to make something a little bit more, I guess, well researched on this topic or more specific to this topic, but this is just kind of, I guess, more of a rant because it's something that I've dealt with since I was a kid. So, for those of you that don't know, that you probably couldn't even guess by looking at me and having watched my videos and just by looking at me, half of my family is obese. They're very overweight. My mom's side of the family is very overweight. Just about everybody in the family, all of her siblings, all of her, my cousins, a majority of them. There's probably about a handful of us that are slim or slender. Obviously, I'm kind of on the extreme end of that because of my illness, but even at my heaviest, I was never heavy. I was a normal weight. I was slim, and that actually runs in my dad's side of the family. But on my mom's side, which is the side that we associate more with, they are all very heavy, very overweight. She has had siblings that have died from obesity and weight-related issues. I know that there's a lot of controversy over this, which, like I said, I want to make a video more specific to that. But anyways, we had company from my mom's side of the family last week, and they stayed with us for a couple of days. Thank goodness, because I have a very difficult time dealing with, particularly with her side of the family for a long period of time. And because of my illness, I don't really associate with any side of the family, but we mostly associated with her side of the family. So I really haven't seen anybody, unless they come and stay with us. I don't see people from our family ever. So I notice immediately, I become very tense when I know that we're going to have company. I, and my immediate, the tension and the stress immediately goes to my eating, what I eat, the times that I eat, because I eat several times a day. I eat like every 3 hours or so. I have a schedule, and I know that when we have company, my schedule's going to get thrown off, or I'm going to have to sort of eat at different times because I don't like eating with people. And this most recent time, this was my mom's cousin and her husband. They've stayed with us before. They stayed with us actually a few years ago. I think right before the pandemic. So I'm familiar with them. I was sick, when they came last time. I'm still sick. I'm still on my restricted diet. And, last time they came, they made comments about what I was eating. They always make comments about like your appearance, what you're eating, that kind of thing. So I already knew what to expect. And other people in my mom's family that have stayed with us are the same. In my opinion, what I see, and I know that it's very controversial, and I know that there are people that are going to get upset about what I say, but, to me, obesity and anorexia are two sides of the same coin. It's a mental disorder because anorexia is classified as mental illness, and obesity is not. But I do think they're two sides of the same coin, and I do think there is a huge mental component, and I have definitely seen that with my own mom. So there is this preoccupation with eating and with food on her side of the family, which I think is why they constantly are always having to point it out. They can't not say anything about what you're eating or even sometimes your weight. I've never really talked about this specifically. I have been underweight for many, many years because I've been sick for close to 20 years now. but I did go through a period where I was probably like a preteen or just getting into my teens, where I kind of just stopped eating, or I didn't want to eat much. I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. Um, a lot of it was related to my home life and parents and things like that. But it's for whatever reason, like I feel like I always knew why I had these issues, but it never clicked until for whatever reason this most recent visit. And I started to kind of put some pieces together. Like I said, I was a thinner person. I was the product. I was the thin daughter of a fat mother. And I think that in and of itself was an issue. And I never thought about that before until just recently, until the last few weeks. And I think when that happens, and I know that there's a lot of controversy, there's a lot of fat people that say, that they're tired of being criticized by people who are not fat, and by people who don't have, who are not overweight, and being fat isn't unhealthy, and being fat doesn't indicate that you eat a lot, or that, there's a lot going on social media regarding fat people. But a lot of it is just not true. From what I've seen, fat people are fat people's biggest critics. And not only that, fat people are skinny people's biggest critics as well. That, I'm not saying that thin people or people that are not fat don't criticize heavier people. Yes, that does happen, but I do feel that it is more common when it comes to fat people. Fat people are fixated on weight. I mean, obviously, because that's how they are. That's how they've gone through. How they've moved through the world is by being a fat person. So of course they're going to be fixated on that. An example of this that recently came up on social media was, there was a comedian. I forget what his name is, but he's heavy set, and he made a comment about Lizzo, the musician, who's also overweight. And he made just a really disparaging comment about her weight, and people came at him like, who do you think you are? You're also fat. Why are you saying these things about her? And it was almost like this. He started kind of making excuses for it and saying, like, yeah, but I still get women, I still get attention. It was a very, very strange thing, but I do feel that that lack of self-awareness does exist with fat people as well as with thinner people. And I've seen it a lot, in my family. And that is, kind of what I see with my mom's family a lot, is this lack of self-awareness. They know that they are fat, they know that they are overweight, but they still feel like they have the right to tell you how to eat, how to live your life, and that kind of thing. So, I started noticing that I did eat less when they were here, because I wanted to, especially in the morning when I was going to eat breakfast. Everybody gets up and I'm just like, I don't want to sit and eat with anybody. So I would just have my oatmeal with some blueberries in it, eat it quickly, and get out of the kitchen. I also wanted to avoid conversation, because it was also conversation about my health issues that I just didn't want to discuss. And I think that came up in another one of my videos. So I typically have like an egg with a tortilla with my oatmeal and blueberries in it. And I was just like, let's just do the oatmeal, blueberries, and let's get out of the kitchen. And the first one to make a comment is, of course, my mom. She's like, is that all you're going to eat? Is that all you're going to eat? And I mean, this is something that I have heard my entire life. It is no surprise to me at this point that I have had issues related to eating prior to my illness. And then I'm still kind of having those issues after my illness. And I've heard those words over and over and over and over again since I was a child. And that, let me tell you, that will do things to you mentally. And you will see in one of my recent videos, I don't know if it's posted yet, it should be up by the time this one is up. that I spoke to someone who was very overweight who had gastric bypass. And it was very similar. These are very similar issues where you were taught to clear your plate, you were taught to eat every crumb on your plate, or you were not allowed to get up off the table. And that can have two different outcomes. One outcome is that you become overweight, and another outcome is that you stop eating because you've been forced to eat past what you actually can tolerate. And so you develop an aversion to food. And I never really put those pieces together until recently, that it wasn't, because they typically describe anorexia as being like a self-image thing. It's an anxiety thing. It's a control thing, that you want to control something in your life, and your weight is something that you can control. But it's also can be related to body dysmorphia. And I never in my life have ever thought I was fat, ever. Because I heard it over and over and over again that I was too thin, that I was too skinny, that I didn't look good. So I knew that I was way too thin. Even when I wasn't way too thin, even when I was like 15 pounds heavier than I am now, I was still too thin in the eyes of the fat people in my mom's family. Because yeah, to them it was just like, that's ridiculous, because they are accustomed to seeing one very specific type of body. And so, I've never fit that typical profile, because they say that people with anorexia always think that they're fat, or they always see, like if they have, this little dangling flesh here, it's like, oh, that's fat. To me, I have never ever thought that. I developed an aversion to food because I was forced to eat beyond what I could eat. And on top of that, it was the constant dialogue of, is that all you're going to eat? You need to eat more than that. You need to have one more bite. You need to do this. I mean, it's a wonder that I didn't die of an eating disorder as a kid. Unfortunately, now as an adult, I am forced to eat healthy. And that's another thing too. I never ever ate healthy. It's astonishing to me that I was not overweight, because I never ate healthy. Prior to getting sick, I never ate healthy. It was pasta, it was carbs, it was bread. That was my favorite thing to eat, and I was never overweight. So, all of those things, they start coming back, bubbling up to the surface when we have company, particularly people from my mom's side. We never have anybody from my dad's side here at our house. It's always my mom's side of the family. And there are always comments about weight. There's always comments about my condition. And there's also, I think, this assumption that my issues are mental health related. And that, I think, a lot of that has been, propaganda that has been propagated by members of my own family. And so that also came up in a conversation with my mom's cousin. I unfortunately did get caught up in a conversation with her, because my mom left somewhere and left me there, with her. So I had to have a conversation. And the conversation was about my, why I don't travel, why I don't go and do things. And I was like, I'm sick. That's why. And the answer to that was, well, maybe if you traveled, you would forget about your illness, or you would start feeling better. And again, the stupid, ignorant comments, this most recent visit, it wasn't about food. And I feel like my strategy was successful, because I would try to eat and get out of the kitchen so that I wouldn't have to sit and eat with them. But obviously there was another there was another issue that they could, you know, another irritating thing that they could come at me for. And there is a part of me, my mom says, it's just ignorance. Well, yeah, it's ignorance, but it's also caused by them, because they refuse to discuss my health issues, or they refuse to validate my health issues by staying completely silent about them. So I think the assumption is that they're mental health problems, and I just need to get out of the house. And this is something that has been discussed by different, I have actually had these comments directed at me by other people in the family, people that I'm just like, why are they even saying anything to me? They have, at least as far as I know, they don't know anything, any kind of history about my health in the past or my health in the present. But I think the assumption is that there's some kind of anorexia or some kind of eating disorder going on. And because my own family refuses to clarify that or refuses to refute that and say that's not the issue here, they have remained silent. I think it's almost like, let's just allow people to assume that. At this point, I don't believe that it is ignorance, because I did explain it to her and I said, I have this specific illness and this is why. And it just came back down to, well, why don't you travel? Maybe it would make you feel better, so on and so forth. You know, it is a lot of times like I said, the insinuation, my past history, of not wanting to eat, and all of that. Yeah, I don't know if these members of the family, they shouldn't know about any of that, because it's not like my mom has always gotten on the phone with them. But I do feel, and this is something that you will see in another one of my videos where I talk about mental illness, that there are people that weaponize mental illness. And I feel like that happened with me, with my family, that they spread this propaganda about me having mental health problems. But now that we're seeing that it's a physical illness, I mean, it could have been a physical illness back then, but I wasn't taken to a doctor. But now that it's a physical illness, they've been completely silent and refuse to speak about it. So I think there is this sort of assumption that it's just mental health problems, that it's just a mental illness that has, just kept going all these years. And I can assure you, it is not a mental illness. I have a physical condition. I've spoken about it at length here on this channel. But I myself do not talk with members of the family unless they bring it up, which in this case, she brought it up. And I told her, I said, it's, I think I said it was Lyme disease or something, because that's kind of, I feel like that's the more easy, more understandable diagnosis. And I mean, none of this is easy to understand or easy to comprehend for most people, but I explained it, and because nobody was getting in my way, I kept going, and I just said, yeah, it's, I have a lot of health issues, I have all of these problems, and I just kept going. And there's a certain point where I just think to myself, if nobody's going to stop me, I'm just going to keep talking and talking and talking about it. So hopefully this person will get fed up with hearing my explanation and won't ask me again. But I managed to avoid getting into any more conversations about that particular subject for the rest of their stay. They stayed with us for, I think, a couple of days, and then they left. And, I just made sure that I ate quickly in the morning, got out of the kitchen, and I thought to myself, whatever calories I'm missing here, I'll recuperate them when they leave, because, to be honest, it's more stressful to me to have to sit there and to know that people are eyeballing what I'm eating. And yes, that does happen in my family. They will stare and they will watch every bite that you're eating and just keep looking at you, monitoring what's going into your mouth. So, when I hear a lot of this conversation on social media, and like I said, I do want to get more into it, more in depth into this topic. But when I see this conversation that obesity and being fat is totally okay and it's totally normal and it doesn't mean that you have health issues. Well, yeah, you can be fat for a very long time and not have any really serious health issues. That is technically true. It doesn't mean that you don't have mental health issues. And I do believe, like I said, obesity and anorexia are two sides of the same coin. And I have seen that in my family. There is an obsessive element to it with some people. There are people who are obsessed with food. And it's not just obsession with food. Sorry, the window's open, so there's a lot of noise outside. But it's not just an obsession with food. It's a preoccupation with food. It's, it occupies their minds all day long. My mom loves to cook. She loves to eat. But one of the more recent things that she has been doing is watching. She loves to watch, Food Network stuff and cooking shows. But one of the more disturbing things that I have seen recently is her watching mukbangs on Facebook. And if you don't know what a mukbang is, Google it at your own risk. I have seen it. It is revolting to me. And again, this is coming from someone who was forced to eat when I did not, when I was full. And so mukbangs to me are just, I mean, horribly triggering. They're awful to me. I cannot stand watching it, and I have noticed her watching these a lot, which to me is very, very unhealthy. This is not, it's not a good sign. So, you know, I have my opinions about it, and I know that there are people that are going to tell me it's not my place to discuss obesity because I'm thin. But like I said, it's two sides of the same coin. Obesity, anorexia, being underweight, it can be a similar issue. It can be a mental illness. It can be due to physical issues. There are people with Lyme disease who are overweight because they can't move. There are people with Lyme disease who are underweight who still can't move. And a lot of it is just the way that the disease manifests in that person. But, you know, I wanted to talk about this. There's a lot of history here, there's a lot more to it. But I am getting tired of these conversations that are sort of placing fat people as victims, because you are not a victim. You know, this, and being fat is not healthy, you know, in my, I mean, it's not even in my opinion. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of organizations that have been formed to fight the obesity epidemic. It's not healthy, you know. I don't care if you're fat. I don't, you know, to me it doesn't make a difference in my life, but from what I've seen in my own family, that does make a difference. When you come home from school to find out that your mother has been hospitalized because of her, you know, her complications related to being overweight. But like I said, this is more of a longer topic. There might be a part two to this video, but this was just something that was really grating on my nerves because I'm tired. I'm tired of hearing it. There is another side to it. It's not just fat people that get harassed for being fat. Thin people get harassed for being thin. And oftentimes it is by fat people as well. So that's what I've got for you guys today. I know a little bit of I'm in a little bit of a bad mood with this one, but the company is gone, so I've been able to relax for the last couple of days. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next one.